Are you a new teacher that is struggling to decide on a job offer? Or maybe you're not really sure what to look for to land your dream teaching job. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my channel where I share weekly insights, support, strategies, and candid advice about teaching social studies. And if you're new to this channel, hi, I'm Cecilia Tames, and I'm an experienced educator and consultant. I provide resources, support, and solutions for passionate history teachers like you. So before considering a job offer and before even bothering to go out to different school districts and applying to their district, I highly advise that you sit down and figure out what it is that you want in a district specifically. Now, I do have to disclose this kind of as a little preface to this video. This video is not an end-all be-all to determining which district, which school, which teaching environment is the best for you. This is merely based on my experience, but I do feel like it can give you a great starting point, specifically if you're new to education. Okay, so let's talk about commuting. This is one of those things that's going to drag pretty much right off the bat because you're going to feel it. If you're the kind of person that likes to take their time and get there early and be prepared, like you're going to have to wake up at some ungodly hours. So you have to be really honest with yourself about what it is that you're willing to tolerate and make your decision from there. Now, the second thing to consider is location, location, location. Essentially, you need to think about, is this a convenient location for me? If you're a parent, do my students go to this school district, or am I going to have to make several drop-offs? Relocation might be required or necessary due to the commuting distance that you just do not want to put up with. So location is another factor that easily and right off the bat can help you determine, eliminate, or choose the best school or district environment for you. Now, sometimes in teaching, you may have to stay later, again, depending on your teaching duties or what you need to prepare. But you also want to consider whether or not you feel safe in this particular location or area. Now, you may feel safe at your school during the daytime when you're working, but if you ever end up staying late and you have errands to run and you stop at places that are in the area because they're just conveniently on your way out or on your way home, you want to consider whether you feel safe in these areas and whether that is something that is of high priority to you. So the third thing that you want to consider, and you need to be really honest when you're answering these questions, and I tell you this because the goal here is obviously not to, discredit or discourage new educators from serving any specific student population. I'm telling you as an experienced educators that there are gifted people to teach every kind of different student. You just have to have that personal calling, and you need to be honest with yourself about who you're called to serve. So for this type of question, you need to ask yourself, who do you actually have the gift, the temperament, and the patience to serve? Now, you also need to ask yourself, are there any student characteristics that would hinder you from providing the best service to these students? And of course, I'm not talking about race or gender, ethnicity, orientation, anything like that. We are legally obligated to service these students and treat them all equitably. However, I'm talking about students that have special needs. Do we feel confident in working with this group? Do we feel like we have the gift and the calling to work with this group, the patience? You also want to consider and keep in mind who you're best suited to teach, whether that be older students, younger students. An older student group, in my experience, is going to be a lot more mature, a lot more independent, which is great. They are a little bit more self-directed, but sometimes they're too old in the sense that they're set in their ways and they're a lot more difficult to influence and manage sometimes. If you work with a younger student group, you will need to have the patience of a saint, because again, these students are going to require a lot of very intentional, broken down, explicit details and directions and instruction. So if you have that gift of working with younger students, and by the way, they are the sweetest souls ever, and they're such a fun group because again, they still have not necessarily made up their mind about too many things at that point in their life. If you have that patience and that calling, then perhaps a younger grade level is best suited for you. Now, let's say that you applied for a certain job, but you're certified in several different areas, and they're offering you a job in an area that is not your preference. If you're not emotionally prepared and willing to service this group of students, if your heart's not in it, if you just don't feel confident, you have to listen to your gut. And I'm telling you this from a place of experience, because if not, you're going to do yourself a disservice and you're going to do those students a disservice. And that's not fair for either. Now, the fourth thing you want to consider before accepting that job offer is connections and familiarity. Now, in education, sometimes this is not always seen as a bad thing, because usually if you have friends or if you have a connection somewhere that can serve as a support system or get your foot in the door to get a teaching position and kind of guide you as to the process or give you the insight that you need about, the student population and kind of what to expect. It's great to have this guidance. But there are some things that you want to consider. For example, is this going to cause a major conflict of interest? Are you going to be frowned upon consistently simply because you have these connections? Now, if you had previous employment within a specific school district, you want to consider whether you really want to be applying there for a professional position. Because oftentimes we feel like, well, I was already a permanent substitute there, or I was a paraprofessional there. I didn't have that great of an experience, or there was just too much gossiping, or it's a toxic environment, but at least I have my foot in the door. Don't settle for that. The ideal teaching job is out there, and we want to make sure that we don't self-sabotage by putting ourselves into a situation that is familiar instead of taking a chance on something that might be way better for us personally, and just learning to make new connections. You need to realize that your first teaching job is literally going to set the tone for your teaching career. It can inspire you, or it can really kill your passion for your job. So that's why I continue to emphasize that it's so important that you truly be honest with yourself when you're answering these questions. So far, which one of these factors do you feel is starting to weigh a little bit heavier for you when determining your job opportunities? I'd love to hear your thoughts, so comment below and let me know. The fifth thing you want to consider when determining if a job offer or a school district or campus is right for you is the pay. And I didn't put this one first, sadly, because everyone who goes into education knows and understands, unfortunately, that teaching is a profession that is not highly compensated. However, I do want you to do your homework when it comes to deciding whether a certain school district actually does pay relatively better, not well, but better, than other comparable districts based on the cost of living. Now, if you are offered a job, so please don't ask this during the interview, but if you are offered a job, a question you might ask, especially if you have several offers to consider, you might want to inquire what benefits they offer, if they offer stipends, any type of growth opportunities, additional contract, extra teaching duties for pay. So if you are looking to really beef up your paycheck, you might want to inquire whether there are additional opportunities for you to do this within the school district. So some of the things and some of the additional pay might include something like a retention stipend. So maybe for every number of years that you're part of a school district or you stay at your campus, or you might ask about whether or not you're paid to attend staff development, whether or not you get a stipend for having additional certifications or maybe a graduate degree. So these are things that you want to ask. Okay, now as your virtual mentor, I have to tell you this because it's important. There is nothing wrong with wanting to make a decent living. Nothing. We need to normalize getting paid. This is not free labor. We work for the state. So get comfortable with that, do your homework, and if this is something that matters to you, then you want to make sure that you are informed. The sixth thing to consider is growth opportunities. So if you're a person who's looking to possibly advance into an administrative position, if you're looking to get an additional stipend or coaching, or possibly just ascend in your pay grade and in your duties. You want to look at a school district that does maybe a lot of internal hiring. And this might be a question that's good to ask human resources if you are being offered an opportunity. During the interview, however, it might be a good idea to inquire whether the school district or the campuses actually provide professional development based on teacher interest. So this is something where if you're interested in growing in a certain area, in your knowledge, in your set of skills for a certain area, whether or not you will be supported at the school district. Now, more recently, I do want to bring to your attention another factor that may help you determine whether or not you're a good fit for a school district, or rather I should say whether a school district is a good fit for you. You want to consider, what is the temperament of the school district? Like, what is the personality of the school district? Are they a very conservative, tight-knit community school district that is very cemented in tradition? Are they not likely to welcome new ideas or ways of doing things or teaching? In other words, you have to consider whether you're going to get a lot of pushback. Sometimes smaller, tight-knit communities might be very amenable and open to change. So you need to do your homework in investigating whether or not this community is going to be a good fit based on your particular teaching style and based on your person as well. Now, it's really sad for me to share this, but I've spoken with a lot of teachers, I've heard from a lot of educators, and it's really unfortunate that sometimes ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, gender, all these things have factored into them having a negative experience, just where they overall feel uncomfortable and isolated and marginalized. It's so sad that this is happening during some of the earliest experiences you'll have as an educator, because this could really turn you off to the profession. And although this discrimination is not only illegal but extremely unprofessional, I really wouldn't want for it to taint your experience and just kill your passion for being the educator that your students need to see, because we teach all students, and all students need to see all types of people. Finally, let's talk about school size and school type. So obviously, you could be offered job opportunities at a charter school, a public school, a private school, etc. You want to make sure that you're not applying to a school that maybe you're not certified to teach at, because then that's a complete waste of your time and energy. So you want to investigate what are the qualifications, what are the requirements for teaching at specific campuses. A private setting may have additional funding versus a public school. Even if a private school does have more funding for classrooms, this doesn't necessarily equate and transfer to a better paycheck for you as an educator. Because although public schools may not be as well funded as a private school, the pay grade may be a lot higher at a public school. Again, this is just something that you would need to look up and investigate. Now, regardless of whether the school is a private school or a public school, this is just what I've noticed in my experience, but sometimes in larger schools, you may have less individualized attention, which if you thrive on just doing your own thing, this is a total bonus for you. In a smaller school district or a smaller campus, you will probably have a lot more individualized attention, possibly even more micromanagement happening, but you'll always have, or you'll typically have a more readily accessible support system because of the campus size. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I highly advise that once you're done watching this video, you do sit down to really not only write the characteristics that you most value for a workplace, but also number them in order of importance. So you know which will be deal breakers the minute you get a job offer or when you're applying to a school district. If you're a brand new educator who just accepted their first teaching offer, make sure to check out my video, Be a Successful First Year Teacher, where I share 5 things that you need to know in order to prepare to teach like a pro this coming school year. And I'll go ahead and link that video in the description below. If you're a new history teacher, consider joining my exclusive Facebook group, the History Teachers Lounge, where I am hosting a new teacher boot camp where I will be sharing info and insight to help you prepare for your first year teaching and create camaraderie with other new fellow educators. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe. Until next time, class dismissed.